Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the publishing world, traditional, self-publishing, and more. I'm your host, Sharon Christine, an author navigating the turns and plot twists of getting books into readers' hands. Here we get real about the wins, the rejections, and the lessons learned along the way. Whether you're chasing an agent, going self-published, or just curious how it all works, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hey y'all, and welcome back to The Wannabe Author. Today's episode is such a fantastic one. I've been so excited to share it with y'all because not only was it recorded with a friend, but also with an author slash editor whose debut novel just released this week. And it is called Shrike, and I hope I'm pronouncing this right. At Adonian Academy, Thorn Alder seeks answers about her supernatural condition while investigating the mysterious Professor Shrike, whose inhuman eyes and nightly disappearances hint at darker secrets. Another line, little selling point line. When a female scholar gets lost in a game of gods, she refuses to play along. Oh, I'm so excited to get my hands on this book. Anyway, this episode was super fun to film. We got to not only hear this author's journey to publication, how she got her book out there, and all the steps and obstacles she had to overcome. She does have her own editing business and works with authors all the time on getting their books publishing ready. And it was cool to kind of see her point of view and skill sets regarding editing and how they kind of bleed into also how she writes and prepares her own work for publication. This author had so many fantastic quotes and ideas and insight to give us. I'm so excited for y'all to listen. I for one was beyond impressed and taught by this author. I'm so excited for y'all to be too. It is my honor and privilege to introduce you all to my friend Charla Ayers. Charla, hi, welcome to The Wannabe Author.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course. So this is such an exciting week, especially to talk to you about your book and your journey and stuff, but you're releasing a book this week, your first, which is so exciting. I'm so excited to just dive into everything regarding you and your book. But before we get going into all of that, I always love to start out by asking my authors and guests, what are you currently reading?
Absolutely. I'm actually elbows deep in two client manuscripts because I have two indie authors. They're coming out with books in December. So I am busting through edits for them. But in my free time, I'm very slowly working through The Moth and the Night by Rachel Gillig. Just because I've spent all my reading time on my clients. But in my slow time, I'm making my way slowly and surely through that book. But I love Rachel Gillig and her writing. She's a huge inspiration for me, so I'll always read everything she writes.
Love. I've actually been needing to start that book. It just seems like so gorgeous.
It is.
Okay. I'm moving it up in the list.
Yeah, do it.
Okay. This is so exciting to like dive into you and your book, but also into the aspect of you being an editor. We don't get a whole ton of like author editors here on the show, so it's so fun when we do get the opportunity to hear from like both sides of the table when it comes to creating a book. So I'm so excited to get like your point of view on everything. But I'd love to start out with having you tell the listeners your origin story. Like, what brought you to sitting down and writing your book and saying, I'm going to get this published one day?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll have to go back a little bit because I didn't have the choice to write this book. This book wrote itself. And I think a lot of authors say that, and you hear, oh, and I was that author for the longest time going, how do people say their characters just exist in their mind? And when you get that story that does that, you get it. But for the longest time, I didn't. I got my bachelor's in writing and pub in 2016, but I graduated 2 months pregnant with my oldest son. And as we've discussed, my pregnancies are horrible. So I didn't really dive into my career. I dove headfirst into motherhood. And I had, during my undergrad, I started a photography business as a way to be creative and make money because I was going to school full time and I couldn't work full time. So I thought I really need an outlet. So I started a photography business, and it kind of took off and was surprisingly wonderful and fulfilled me in many ways. And as I kind of got into motherhood, I thought, well, I'll just continue to do this because it's a way for me to be home with my children and be an attentive parent, but also, have something that's for me, that's, monetary value to the family and gives me that creative outlet. And so I kind of just let that have its way with me for the longest time, and just kind of like, if it was doing well, I'd push really hard and go bigger and do all the things. And I was finding that wasn't the kind of, the longer I did it, the less fulfilled I felt. And so I altered it into like a branding business. So then I began working with small companies and working on their mission statements, their website design, obviously photography, like developing a brand for the market. And I loved that. And I'm really thankful that I did that, because once I finally took myself seriously, I'm using all those skills every day. But I kind of got to the point where I thought, okay, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to focus on me. I'm going to choose what I want to do and go after that. So then I started my master's in 2019 for publishing, and got pregnant with my second son. And then I had to take a break because I was so sick. And then about the time he was 2 and, mostly a fully functioning little guy who could like not need me for every moment, I finished it. And I finished it July of last year. But as I was working on finishing it, and I also was simultaneously quitting photography, which is kind of like a slow process because you book stuff out so far in advance, I found myself in this transition period. And as any transition period is, it was very uncomfortable, and I was very terrified. And I'm leaving behind this thing that served me for 10 years and embarking on this other thing I've simultaneously been working on for 10 years. And how do I kind of leave this person behind to find this one? And so I've always written. Like I said, I have 2, books in the drawer that will never see the light of day. And I've always loved poetry. I've always written poetry. Like, that's the way I process. I digest with words. And so I'm writing in the background, but it's this secret thing. I'm a troll in a dark room and no one knows what I'm doing, and I keep it hidden. And it's very like, this is embarrassing. I can tell no one what I'm doing, literally getting the degrees, but still just like there was a block within myself. So at the end of the summer last year, I had finished my degree, and we had to take this entrepreneur class. So you had to create your own publishing business. It could be an actual publishing house, an editing business, whatever you wanted it to be. So for me, naturally, because I'm a grammar freak, like it's always been my wheelhouse, I said, I'm going to start an editing business for this class. And my professor pulled me aside. He said, I think if you're interested in this, you've done incredibly well. This should be something you should seriously think about. And I thought, there it is. There's my answer. There's the golden key. That's what I'm going to do. So I started this business in May. Now, the prologue to Shrike came to me in February of last year, and it hit me so hard. I was terrified. It scared me. So I wrote the prologue, and I just kind of set it aside. Now, at the time, I was also teaching college English courses because I had gotten into teaching as a way to like try to get into the world. And I'm just a natural teacher. I love it. So I'm teaching college English courses, and I'm driving back and forth to campuses. And as I'm doing that, I'm listening to lectures and audiobooks, and I'm taking a creative writing course and getting my creative writing certificate. And I'm doing all of these things, and it feels very unintentional. But like in hindsight, I could go, oh, like I was moving. But I just felt like, oh, this is something silly I'll do. This is something I'll just try. So by the time my degree ended in July, I couldn't stop this anymore. I was driving back and forth. I was plotting in my mind. It was like coming to me, but I wouldn't dare write anything down. I was like, I just can't. I was so scared. And June rolled around, and I couldn't stop it anymore. And it literally like fell out of me. The minute that I started writing, I could not stop. And I wrote the first draft in 2 months. Now, I say that, but I was plotting in my head for months before that. So it was really from when the moment I actually sat down and put my fingers to the keys. I mean, I was having 10K days, but it was like, it was all there. And then I just couldn't stop. It wasn't even a question at that point. I wrote the book and I didn't even allow myself time to go, should I query? Should I indie? What should I do? I dug into the research of querying and I just started. And it was very compulsive, but not in a way like a manic way. It was just like I had finally found the thing and it had set me on fire and I could not stop. And here we are a year later. I mean, a lot has happened in between, obviously, but once I like finally allowed myself to have it, it took off. I told my husband for the longest time because he pushed me. He's like, why don't you try? Why don't you try? And I told him, I can live with the undiscovered dream. I can live with it being that thing I always wanted to do. But for me, I couldn't, I was so scared to try and fail. I just thought I couldn't live with that. I thought that's an outcome I just could not survive. And now I know it is. Now I know I could still fail with this book and I know I'll be fine. I will fail gracefully and I will get back up and keep going. But at that time, I could not do that. So I wouldn't allow myself to have it. So it was like the minute that I did, it worked in a really beautiful way. So here we are.
Oh my gosh. Okay, can I just say, little detached from everything that you just laid out, but it's very obvious that you write poetry. You
Thank you.
speak so gorgeously.
Thank you. I words have always felt like the only weapon that I have. I think especially like to being a woman, it felt like the only thing I could harness and I could grasp. And, unfortunately at a young age learned that they could be helpful or harmful. And so that study was fascinating to me. And words are communication, and communication is everything within the human experience. And so if we can kind of break into that and learn how to manipulate it for good, hopefully, then I think that that's something I want to do personally.
Yes. Yes. Okay, love. And I loved how you explained all that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Like
Yeah.
you were meant to be a
Thank you.
writer.
Thank you.
Of course, of course. Um, so I'd love for you to kind of paint the picture of what it looks like when you sit down to write your books. Like, tell the listeners, kind of, what is your routine? Are you an outliner, a pantser? Do you have to have a specific location, drinks, or any media or music ingested as you do so?
Yeah, absolutely. Books first come to me as a vibe. I mean, it's so strange because before I know anything about the story, the plot, the characters, it's like a feeling that comes over me. And that's very much how Shrike was. And it was so strange because there was kind of two things happening. It's obviously very inspired by Hosier and the song Shrike, but I was listening to the song and I was like, what are those birds, right? And so I was doing research and I was like, that is fascinating. It's violent and beautiful. And like my kids are such animal kids, they're such nature kids that we're oftentimes learning about nature and animals and all the things. And just really kind of like in a cheesy way, the circle of life. And so in that time, I was really focused on that. And I kind of had this other idea in my mind. It was just like a word. It was just like mystics, mystics, mystics. And somehow it was kind of like this perfect moment where they came together. And that's when the prologue came and I thought, what is this? And it was just this thing that was kind of brewing. So they first come to me in a vibe and a feeling and I can't explain it, but that's where I'll create a mood board and a playlist, and I will surround myself with anything that's similar to that feeling. I just pour myself into it. And then once I have an idea, I kind of test it. I poke it with a stick. I see if it's going to do anything, because I do have like these really huge feelings. I'm like, oh, that's something. And then I kind of poke it and it's like, oh, it won't do anything. So I need to wait on it. I let it sit and simmer for a while. And then once I kind of have a fully developed idea, I mean, I'm a huge researcher, as you can tell, like from Shrike, it's got a lot of mythology and lore in it. And so I research and I like really dig deep. And I always try to find like a semblance of truth. And then I work off of that. And I'm a huge outliner. Not in a way that stifles my creative process, but I find that if I know where I'm going with that scene before I sit down to write it, then I can write it. It's not me going, what happens next or what happens now. I try really hard to make sure every single scene is a device in its own way. So if you take a scene out, you're missing something and then it falls apart. So I try to really make sure every single action, every single scene is driving the plot in some way. So if I know where I'm starting and where I want to go, then it's just me determining, okay, what are the fun, really cool, interesting ways I can get there? And then I can kind of go in and set the undertones and the themes and the tropes and kind of what I like to call weaving. So once I do that, then I'll outline. And for me, an outline is very simple. It's however many chapters I think I'm going to use. I do a little bit of math. I do get a little nerdy and set up my percentages and where I want my plot points to be. And I even do the graph where I draw the line, because to me that like is music in its own way. So I'm like, what does the line of this book look like? Is it, I kind of paint it how I want it to go. So, but my outline is very simple. It may be, again, if it's 40 chapters, I know what I want to happen in these chapters, what needs to happen in these and these. And then I'll go through and it's literally 1 to 4 sentences on what needs to happen in that chapter. So then when I sit down to write, it's there. I know what I'm doing. And then I can go, okay, what way do I want to do this? What way fits the scene, fits the characters? How can I do this in a really fun, creative way? Hopefully through dialogue and action. And then I just let myself go. I can draft and free write and do all those things, but when it comes to the work, I absolutely need to have it structured, because then if not, editing is worse, because if I'm trying to go back and make sure I've kind of woven things correctly, I might find, a lot more loose threads. So if I do it on the front end and kind of give myself bones and structure, then I can have fun with it. And it's not like, what's coming next? What's happening next? It's just, it makes it a lot more faster and fun, I think.
Love. And I like hearing how you explained that and how you dissect your own stories. That really preaches to how great of an editor you are, I think. Like, I think that really shows off your editor mindset of really dissecting each layout of the story. I loved that. I love how you
Thank
explained it.
you. Thank you.
Now, I'd love for you to kind of talk about your publishing journey. Just kind of like break down how it went for you. And then I always love to hear what was the most surprising aspect of the journey for you to get to this point of publishing your book.
Absolutely. So like I said, I drafted through the end of July. I took a couple weeks off. I edited through August, which was not enough time. And I preach to people all the time. Give yourself space, let it rest, because you can't judge yourself when you're in the creating brain. You can't be in your analytical brain. And it takes time to really kind of come out of that. Even with me, like things I thought were fine, it wasn't until I really set some time and I come back and went, I hate this. That's not at all what I want to do. Let me work with that. But doing that quickly, I was like, oh, this is great. This is perfect. And then I'm like, I don't know what I was thinking. So I didn't give myself enough time. I mean, hindsight, it worked out fine, but I started querying at the beginning of September. I sent some really horrible query letters, and then I dug in and I researched my butt off. I took all of the courses and did all the digging and did everything that I could possibly do. And it was about November before I actually figured it out. And I say that because I think that querying authors can get so tied up in the how that they forget the why, in a sense of, if you maybe are not so considerate on exactly what your query letter looks like, sounds like, how it resonates, and learn how to market yourself, like truly climb inside of your story and learn its internals, and then express that in your query letter, that's the magic. That's what I call the secret sauce. What is your story doing differently? Still being within its genres and tropes and within the market, but what's it doing differently? And once I figured that out for my book, it was a different journey. I mean, I queried for 4 months. I mean, I got my first offer by the end of December. So it wasn't, an extensive period, but once I figured it out, that's where things really took off. And that's why I want to help querying authors now. Like, I offer query packages with my stuff because it's a whole process. And if querying authors can learn how to do that, to really like dig in and say, okay, what about me, my book? What gives me the right to tell this story? Why am I special? Why does it have to be my voice? And in this way, and for this concept, and for this topic. And I think once you do that and you really learn how to market yourself, because essentially that's what agents are looking for. They want to know where your book rests on a shelf. That's why they want comps, right? They want to see, okay, where does this stand? Is there room in the market? All of these things. So if you essentially do that for them, you're more than likely to be seen because they know that you know what you're talking about. You're not just slinging out query materials. So once I learned that, I do my best to turn around and pass it along. But it was really kind of taking that minute to go, okay, let me slow down and figure this out, and not just hope and keep shoving things out there, but kind of really analyze myself. So I figured that out. I got my first offer by the end of December. And then I got 2 more in early January. And then I was signed by the end of January. And I went on sub in April. And things changed, things happened, and that's fine. But I made a really tough decision to take it off of submission and self-publish it. And it's probably not a decision that many people will make, and I understand that, but it was the perfect decision for me because I have learned more about myself and my story than I ever would have learned if I had gotten a deal out the gate. There's no way around that. There's putting in the work really does build you. And so even though I started and I told my agent, I want to go trad because I feel like I've done everything alone and I want a champion. I want someone to stand beside me, to help me get there, to be a mentor. That's why I want this. I need that. And ironically, I was forced to do it alone. And that's just my lesson. That's just my path. And I'm learning it and I'm happy for that. But I think a lot of people have an idea of the publishing industry, but it's really not until you're in the thick of it, till you really see it for what it is. And that's not a good or bad thing. I think it's the truth of most industries. But I'm very happy with my decision. And though I don't feel as prepared as if I were to had made the decision to not query an indie and have a full year of marketing and whatever, I feel very content with what I'm putting out. And I do 100% believe that right now is the perfect time for this book. So I'm going to do my absolute best and put it out there and just hope that it resonates. And that's all I can do, really.
Charlotte, what a crazy adventure you've been on to get this book to where it is now. And it's one I can relate with in many ways, as you know, but it's just, you're right. Like, you don't hear a lot of authors that had gotten as far in as like submission, and instead of like pushing it through, have gone back and been like, I need to do it this way. So I love getting to hear stories like yours where you're just like, yeah, this is how it had to happen, but we are making it and we're making it work. Like, it just shows real dedication to the art and to you as an author. Like, I'm just very inspired and impressed by you. So
Thank you.
I know this book is going to resonate. It's going to do so well, but I hope you know, cheering you on. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Now, I have a couple questions for you as an editor
Sure.
specifically, but what's something you've learned as an editor that's completely changed the way you approach your own writing?
I think a lot of things go hand in hand, but simply being on the other side is incredibly eye-opening. There's so much that occurs in that editor author relationship that I absolutely adore that I do take on for myself. So the biggest thing is I find that if I'm really just considering how it pertains to my writing, I am able to go through and cut unnecessary things and move things around and rebuild things for other authors that has helped me to do for myself. It's helped me to see past my own flaws and go, oh, it allows me to look at my writing at a different standard, not like it's my writing, which is extremely difficult to do as an author. And um, it's very hard to edit your own work. It's really difficult to get outside, again, like I said, that creative mindset and get into that analytical mindset. So doing this constantly for other manuscripts has allowed me to do that for mine in a way that I think will help me exponentially as I continue to write, because I'll be able to get in there and dig around and go, that's not necessary. Who are you kidding? Or that's really great. Work on that. And hopefully see it from a different perspective that I can't when I'm writing it. And I think it's the greatest thing that I've ever done. So I love that. And also just staying in the lore, in the study, in the practice, in the textbooks, in the manuals. I'm constantly digesting that information and double checking and making sure things are right and cross-referencing things. So that again makes my own writing stronger, because when I'm initially writing, I hopefully most of the time know what to do and how to do it, more correctly. I mean, editing is editing for a reason. I'm going to come back and fix it. But it helps me kind of on the earlier end be able to go, oh, avoid that. You're going to hate that. So it absolutely helps me. I mean, and I find new ways every single day. And like I'll be going through someone's manuscript and I notice like another filler word and I'm like, I need to check mine for that, because it might have been something I missed for my own writing, thinking I don't have that many so's in there, until you do a search and find and terrify yourself. So it absolutely, everything that I apply to my authors, I apply to myself, and probably even harder. Like I am so hard on myself. I have the highest standards, and it just helps me. It helps me try to like stay on my game and making sure that, everything is done the way that it should be. So I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love just being able to crawl inside other people's work in ways that like a lot of people don't know how to do. But feedback is another huge thing. It's taught me how to give feedback in the most constructive way, because I was talking about this to someone else the other day. A lot of writers nowadays are not formally trained, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, talent is talent no matter which way you cut it. But the biggest thing that I think that we miss from that formal educational system is critiquing each other, right? Being in the classroom allows us a safe space to be torn down and to rebuild around people who we trust, like-minded individuals, mentors who can guide us. We lose that a lot when we're doing it on our own. And not a lot of people know how to just like find partners who can give them what they need. We send our books out to beta readers, but do they have what it takes to be able to offer us the value that we need from the read? Which is why I always suggest sending out a questionnaire. Be very specific. But I've learned how to give feedback in a way where I try to really tailor it to the author and get inside their mind, not like, oh, I wouldn't do that. That's not to my taste. I don't do that. Even if I'm editing novels that may not be to my taste, might not be something that I pick up, I could still get in the middle of it and kind of go, okay, I see what you're trying to do, and I see the way that maybe you want to do it. Could you try this? And even if that's not the answer, 9 times out of 10, it will then inspire that author to go, no, but I know what will work. And it's even better than it was before. And that's what we miss, like that interaction, that building, that kind of plotting and planning beforehand, or like in the edit of, okay, let's really tear this down. What are you doing? Is it working in your scene? How are you moving this forward? Being able to deliver feedback in a way that's not harmful is the greatest thing that I've been able to take away from this. Because feedback can be very hard. It can be very sensitive when you're, again, like we said, signing yourself up to be judged. And a lot of times people just want to tear you down or have their opinion, or, oh, I found that out, so now I'm going to tell you 600 times that this one thing was really bad. I want to make sure that we're being beneficial and helpful and not harmful. So yeah, those are the 2 biggest things I think I've taken away from that into my own writing.
Love. I think that was gorgeously said, of course, because you have a way with the words, ma'am. But I just love hearing that, and I think that is a very, very good point regarding the critique groups and stuff, because I think like social media has made it very easy to get connected with people, and I've had my share of like groups and working with other beta readers and stuff, and I think that's such a good point, is that real constructive criticism and being able to handle it well, but also being able to give it well. I think that's a very good point, and I would love, if ever, to see this questionnaire you have for beta
Yeah,
readers.
I'll
That
definitely send it out.
seems
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Yeah, I'll absolutely send it to you. I like to ask very
I would
specific
love that.
questions like, what's your favorite character? What's your favorite chapter? Is there a chapter that you could do without? Is there something that made you uncomfortable? Like, really consider the feedback that you want and ask questions, because 9 times out of 10 betas are just read it and go, oh, I love it. Oh, it's great. But if you ask very specific questions and they know that you want their opinion, then they're going to go, okay, I need to do this well, and I need to look for this and give my honest opinion. And they're less likely to like blow you off. They're more encouraged to read. I mean, it's the psychology of it, of course, but also they're going to be more apt to like read and give you the feedback that you need. So, and you can ask different betas different things. If you know someone, if you're really close to the friend, you know, okay, she's going to be really good at this specific aspect, I'm going to have her focus on that. And he might be really good at making sure dialogue is the way it is. Whatever that might be, you can ask different readers different things to kind of get all of the analysis that you need to then come back and go, okay, this is how this is landing. Let me see what I want to do with that within, you know, my realm. Don't just take people's opinions and go, okay, you said that this was bad, I'm going to fix it. But go, okay, there's an issue here. Why is there an issue, and how can I fix it? Because I tell people all the time, if something doesn't relate, it's still the author's job to fix it. It's not your job, or it's not my job to over explain it to you and go, well, that's not actually what it means. It's my job to make sure it lands in the book. So even if there's an issue and you can explain it to me, it still has to be addressed on page. And so that's the way I like to make people think, is like, regardless, like, fix it the way that you want it to make them feel the way that you want to feel. If you're not getting the reaction that you want, then that's an indicator that you need to go back and do something to get that reaction that you want. And I mean, it varies. It's subjective. No, not everyone's going to love your book. There's going to be people that hate it, and that's perfectly fine. But it still helps us as authors kind of be able to work on our craft. So that's my 2 cents anyways.
No, I love your 2 cents. Give all the 2 cents.
Thanks.
That was fantastic. Taught me a lot.
Yay.
Okay. What do you wish someone had told you when you were a wannabe author, just dreaming about getting this book published one day? Or like in one of your lower times where you're like, I don't know if this is going to happen. What is something you wish someone had told you?
I think it's always evolve your perspective. Always. I think that it's so easy to, again, like, especially as a querying author, to get in your mindset, I'm going to query and get an agent and get a book deal. Learn the steps of the industry and arm yourself. I tell people all the time, like, I absolutely think there are things about the industry that need to evolve. I think there are things that are outdated. I think there are better ways that we can do things, sure. And we can talk about that all day long. But either way, it's still $1 billion industry for a reason. And there are absolutely still, you know, things put in place that we need to abide by. So I say, learn how to play the rules first, and then you can kind of see how you can move within that space. But I wish that I had known that. I figured it out the hard way, and that's fine. And I can now turn around and tell it to others. But having a perspective that I think was very skewed or narrow, or probably slightly naive, allow yourself to like fail and let your emotions change and let your feelings change and let your idea about it change. Like, allow yourself to constantly be torn down so that you can rebuild. I think we live in a culture where everything is immediate. Everything is right now. We think that, you know, it all has to happen right this second. And that's not the reality, especially in publishing. I mean, the biggest saying is publishing is slow until it's not. And that's the way it is. So I think being flexible and knowing who I am and my purpose so strongly that it doesn't matter what situation I'm put into, I can navigate it. That would have helped me, I think. And that's probably very specific feedback. But if you know exactly who you are and your goals and what you want to accomplish, the way that you get there doesn't really matter. If you can kind of hold yourself with that same confidence and esteem and like just knowing of what you're trying to do, then you can handle anything. But it wasn't that way. And so the minute one thing went wrong, I thought, oh, I'm done. I'm screwed. I'm done for. That was it. And so again, it took me having the most incredible agent to go, no, ma'am, that's not at all what that means. Actually, let me teach you a few things. And so, it wasn't over for me when I thought it was. So I think that really learning, sinking into the industry, learning about what agents do, learning about what editors do, like really learning the jobs and the actions that happen so that you can better navigate it. Don't just assume and then, like hope. Do what you can to prepare yourself and soak up all of the information that you can.
I think that was so perfectly said, and I feel like I'm gonna go on a little tangent because I want to add to it.
Please do.
But I was scrolling threads, I think, yesterday, which is always a scary place to be. But I was scrolling threads, and there was an author that said, I hear so many negative things regarding agents and the traditional publishing industry. Please explain to me why I should keep querying. And I think that really builds off of what you were saying is, like, I feel like there is a lot of negative feedback regarding the industry. And you know what? As somebody who's had not the best experience in the traditional industry, I understand. But I think it all falls back on what you said regarding taking responsibility and learning about the industry, what comes next, what the responsibility of the agent is, and the editors and all of that. I think that is something that is not pressed enough, at least from what I'm seeing, towards authors who are trying to get into the industry. And I think that was such an important thing for you to comment on. I think it needs to be explained more that yes, crappy situations happen and it's so frustrating because you're putting in all this work, but I know I didn't have like the education to endeavor in the industry. And that really showed, even though there was like things out of my control. And I think it's very important to know and take accountability for the fact that I didn't know anything and kind of just threw myself into it. So I think what you just said was so perfectly said, and definitely I think needs to be spread more instead of like, awareness of some of the negative things that can happen so you can learn about it, but definitely more of this taking responsibility.
I mean, it's a double-edged sword too, because again, like that's the thing that's not great about the industry is there's not a lot of material. I mean, like doing my research and being an academic, scouring the web for actual like reviewed, quality controlled querying information doesn't exist. I mean, I like literally wrote a thing to my local college like, hey, can we teach querying classes? Because it's not known, it's not active, it's not accessible. So where we do absolutely need to inform ourselves and do what we can, we also need the information to be accessible. So that's where I do see the change happening. There are agents who, are thankfully sharing and, doing the podcasts and here's what I'm looking for. But that's a fairly new trend. Imagine doing this 15, 20 years ago when you had to mail in a manuscript, right? And wait for however long you had to wait. Like it's so much more accessible now that people don't realize, but it's still very hard to break into. But I think that we need to bridge this gap with authors, agents, and editors. And I think if we all kind of understood what each role actually did and the expectations and how they move, we could then understand each other better. And like I said, place ourselves within the system in a more empowered way. But I think that querying authors have very specific views of agents and very specific views of editors. And I think agents have very specific views of authors. And I mean, we all have these ideas of each other. And I don't think any of them are like all the way accurate. So I think if we did a better job, and that is like also us reaching out, but it's agents saying, hey, this is what I want. This is what we're looking for. This is that. And making it more accessible. would be easier. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that like it's an elitist system for a reason, right? You know, we want the best quality work, but also, again, we can't play the game if we don't know the rules. And I just want the rules to be a little bit more easy to come by so that we can prepare ourselves. I mean, I'm obviously a researcher. Like, I will do anything I can to prepare myself, but if it's not like available, then, and that's harder. And it's really difficult for people, for authors who are trying and they don't even know where to go. Like, if they're not social media people, they may not know to go to Instagram and look at agents' Instagrams because they are full of wonderful, helpful material, but they may not know to go there. And I think if we all worked together, then it would be easier and agents wouldn't be getting queries that are like, what is this? You know what I mean? And I think it would make everything a bit more streamlined, but that's my conspiracy theory. It's for a different time. But yeah, I want it to all just feel a little bit more accessible. It can still be hard, don't get me wrong. We can still, hold boundaries, but yeah, I think that would be helpful.
No, I agree. I love it. Okay. Have you ever thought about giving up? And if so, what kept you going?
Yeah, I give up about 3 times a week. And I think that that's a good thing. I think it's a great thing. I think I have been very hard on myself for my entire life. Like, I am my biggest critic. And I am learning now, like, to fail, to just fail all the time and allow myself to do that, because then I can overcome it, learn it. Like, if it's in my face, I can't ignore it. And then I can fix it and move on. And I think that especially we as a culture, because everyone's getting canceled, everyone has eyes on you, everyone's watching every move you make. It's really, really difficult to want to show up in an authentic way where you're not guarded. And my aim is to not be that way. If I fail as an author, you're going to hear about it. Like, if I'm just going to try my hardest to be exactly who I am, because I think that that's beneficial. I don't want to be perfect. I don't want to be, some mega huge superstar. I just want to write really good books and communicate and translate with people and hopefully bring people together in a way of, you are human, I am human. We have these shared emotions. That's really cool. So I fail all the time, but I'm learning to allow myself to do it. For the longest time, I was really hard on myself and thought, oh, I don't deserve this. I can't keep going. I'm such a failure. If I'm not perfect the first time, I better quit. And that was something I had to get over, and something I got over in this journey, which is beautiful, because now I'm going, I'll get there eventually. One way or the other, as long as I keep doing what I'm doing and loving it, it'll all come out in the wash. And so just fail. Allow yourself to be messy and ugly, and don't stop, but like, do all of the hard things too.
Love. I think that was so beautifully put. Okay. We're coming up on the final questions. This is a question I've been loving to ask because this is the second season of the Wannabe Author, and I've been really trying to focus on connection, conversation, networking, and all of that. So my question is, what is one conversation or exchange in your life or even during this journey that has stuck with you? And it could be advice, kind words, or really harsh criticism that really turned you on your head, and just a conversation that has really stuck with you.
Yeah. Again, back when I was making all the hard decisions, I have the most incredible agent. As you know, we've talked about Alex and she was on the podcast. And really, like, we talk about this because on the call, like I told her I want a champion. I want someone who has my back, and she's had it every single step of the way. And she's refused to let me give up. And never having that to having that has made the difference. I mean, she has made the difference. Truly, I probably would have given up. Like, having the obstacles and the choices in front of me, I'm the type of person, like I just said, if it's too hard, I'm like, no, because I'm not going to make it. If I feel weak enough now, there's no way in hell I'm going to make it. And it's just taken her going, no, that's not at all how it is. Let me show you my perspective. And let me show you the ways in which you can still move and still have your power and still achieve what you want to achieve. And that's now what I'm doing for everyone else is, okay, things might not look the way that you want them to. Don't stop. Figure it out. Because what else do we have to do? I mean, really, like, what else are we here for? And I don't want to get too meta and philosophical, but like, what else are we here for? So I think that truly, like, having that champion, and not only that, but like in an agent who loves my story and truly supports it and wants me to succeed has made the difference. And that's why I tell querying authors all the time, you don't just want an agent. I know that it's just so easy to sink into that desperation, especially when querying takes 5, 6, 7, 8 months, 2 years. It's so easy to just go, I just want an agent. No, you don't. You want the agent that is going to love you and your story and champion you, because not all agents are created equal, and they all have different processes and they all have different vibes and the ways that they work. And you really want to find someone that, you don't have to be their friend, but you want to make sure that you on a level of business that you agree with and that they support you, because at the end of the day, this is art. And it's very difficult to mix art and money. And so you need someone there on your side who wants both for you, who wants to see you succeed in all of the ways. That's been the biggest difference to me. And even still, self-publishing, having her support and her going, you can do this, you've got this, it's literally made the difference. I probably likely would have just said, maybe this isn't for me, I'm not tough enough, but I guess I am. I mean, we'll see, but I feel okay right now.
You are, you are. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, outside of being an author, what is a fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I do everything. I love a hyper focus. I have contracted 3 different house builds. This is our second house that we built. I did photography, I did branding. I do a random, if I am interested in it, I am going to likely study that thing for a couple of months and work on it. I'm hyper independent, probably to a fault, but that's what I do. I just kind of hyper focus on things and I do it. And I think that's a fun way to live. And I love to constantly reinvent myself. Like, one thing I can say is I do a really good job of letting old versions of me die. And I'm okay with that. So, especially, you learn so much through motherhood. Motherhood forces you to look in a mirror in a lot of really ugly ways. You look back on your childhood and the ways that you were raised and the things that you got or didn't get, and you make a plan for how you want to move forward, and you end up somehow going through childhood and like all of these beautiful ways. And so I think I raised myself alongside my children in ways that I figured worked for me, and am still very much nurturing myself and growing, but I'm allowing myself, like I said, to fail and be messy and figure it out, because that's all I can do is just figure it out. So you might see me, crocheting next week, or getting into I love rocks. Like, I get into just really random hyper focuses. So you might see me doing that. But above all else, like, music is my life. I love music. I love concerts. That's where I take the most of my inspiration from. That's therapy to me. If I could sit or drive in the car with the windows down and music and just listen to the words and the lyrics and the music, like, that makes me feel things. And I will always, always do that. So yeah, you'll catch me with headphones in doing weird tasks at any given part of the day, and I can't help it.
I love it so much. Okay. My last little fun question for you is, what is a writing hill you would die on? Like, and this can be in the perspective as an editor or an author, but just like any strong opinion or belief about the writing or industry that you stand by no matter what.
There's quite a few. And as my husband and I like to say, it's not a hill that I will die on, but someone will. I I live in this really somebody's going to, but it might not be me. I live in this really weird in between of being an editor where I want things to be right and correct, and being an author where I want people to challenge themselves and do weird things. I think that this industry, everyone has an opinion. And I was talking about this with someone the other day, like how strange it is that like book influencers exist. Not that that's a weird thing, but it's everyone's opinions are so subjective that it's very hard for someone to say, I liked this and this about that book, and for someone else to not go, oh yeah, that would make me not like that too, but it might be something that they love. So it's so subjective that I think we get really wrapped up in reviews and ratings and all of these things that it's like become this strange standard that I feel like we may not be enjoying the art anymore. Because when we read, we're reading because, oh, if this is a romantasy, then I need to then judge it to all of the other romantasies that I read. And then how does that stack up in my mind? I want people to like read for the enjoyment and what is that author trying to do in that story. And even if it may not be, traditional or look like every other book out there, what are they trying to do? And do you like that? So I think I just would like to pose the question more to ourselves of like, what are we reading? And what does this book in itself, genre, tropes, all the things aside, do that I like or don't like? But again, I think we have, like, it's just constant comparison that I think is not going in the best place for us. And therefore we lose sight of the art. So I want readers to know, like, authors put so much, and I can say this too, having like before I've written things, knowing that people were going to read them, I could be super critical of work. Now I'm in the hot seat. I'm like, well, actually, there's so much more that goes into this that people don't see. And so let's consider that when we're reading each other's art, because it is art. And the way that we do things can be very different from person to person. So I don't know if that answered your question or if that's really a hill I will die on, but I just think it's something I think really needs to be addressed.
We are so on the same wavelength because I've been thinking about this too, and I think you just said it so perfectly. So
Thank
yes,
you.
thank you.
Also, M dashes existed long before AI. They're not indicative. I'm not going to stop using them because I learned about the M dash when I was in my undergrad and I fell in love with that punctuation, and I'm not going to stop using it. So let's stop promoting negative discourse on writing and put good things out there. That's another hill that someone else will die on.
I love it.
Thanks.
I completely agree with that because
Yes.
I overuse that punctuation way too much.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, like you can overuse it. There are times when commas are necessary instead of M dashes, but when they're there and we use them correctly, use them. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes. Yes, I love it. Okay. Now, this is release week. Because this episode comes out this Thursday and your book releases on Monday, so you have a pretty big week.
Yes.
But my last question is like, what is next for you? Any future projects you'd like to tease or any events that you have coming up that you'd like to let the listeners know about?
Yeah, I'll have some signings coming up. They're not dates and times are not set yet, so they'll be coming. Some local events, and then I'm writing book 2, and then I have another really exciting project brewing. Again, the vibes are here. They're in the room. We're just waiting for them to kind of grow. A fun thing about my brain is like it knows me so well that if I'm super busy, I won't get the inspiration, if that makes sense. Like my brain will literally wait until I'm in a state where I can. And so, like we talked about earlier, having writing space, like I need to be in that creative space. It doesn't necessarily like have to be a thing. I mean, when I write, it has to be candles, smells, all the things. As you'll see from my book, it's very sensorial. I'm a very like vibey kind of person, but the vibes are in the room with us. So I have something really fun I want to work on. Again, I think it's going to be probably more speculative, magical realism, kind of witchy, speaking a lot on, things that women go through in a really, I think, fun way that's going to be very unique. So that will be coming up. But yeah, I have things coming I'll be posting about. It was a lot to get to this point and I am tired, so I will likely, after release slip into the darkness to have my creative brain turn on, and then I will reemerge at some point.
Oh, I'm so glad. Charla, this has been such an awesome conversation. I hope you know that. I've truly just enjoyed every single second of this. Hearing from you And hearing you explain certain things about not just the industry, but writing and being an author in general, I aspire to be like you. You
Thank you.
are fabulous, and I am so excited to see Shrike just take off. Your career. Um, you're fabulous and just deserve so much attention and recognition. So good luck with everything,
Thank
and know
you.
that I'm cheering you on, and I'm so excited for the listeners to just meet you and read your book. But thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry I'm awkward and I gab a lot, but again, this is what you see is what you get. I can't even try to pretend to not be anything else.
I love it. I didn't think you were awkward at all.
Thanks.
So
Thanks. I do my best.
you're fantastic. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and close out with the listeners. I'd love for you to stick around for a minute and we can chat off camera. But thank y'all for listening. We will see y'all next Thursday. Bye.